My former romantic partner, the wife's apparent strategy of leveraging our daughters to influence my behavior is a significant concern. While I would prefer to terminate all contact and avoid further interaction, the reality is that we have 2 daughters and a shared custody arrangement. Consequently, I am constrained from completely severing ties. I am unable to terminate the marriage without also removing our daughters from the situation. We married at a relatively early age, at 20, after dating for 3 years. Our daughters were born in the first year of our marriage, and there were some complications, which meant my wife would have difficulty conceiving again. However, I was not concerned about this at the time because I was simply grateful that she had made it through the ordeal in good health and that we already had 2 beautiful daughters to love and raise. The marriage lasted for 9 years until it ended when I divorced her for cheating. I have absolutely no tolerance for infidelity and do not believe in forcing myself to suffer needlessly. Furthermore, I do not believe that my actions were the cause of the situation. While this might sound incredulous to some people, I still have love for my ex-wife. My wife was devastated when I discovered her infidelity and the circumstances surrounding it. This is not a threat about my moving on from her. I have already done so 7 years ago. In fact, I do not even hate her. I simply do not care about what transpires in her life unless it concerns our daughters. The issue is that I am the only one who has moved on from the situation, while my former spouse has not. My wife, her family, and even our daughters have persistently attempted to reconcile us, despite my explicit declaration to all parties that I have no intention of doing so. My decision to refrain from dating for several years following the divorce may have created the impression that I was open to a new relationship, but I was not prepared to enter into another partnership so soon, particularly given the responsibilities I had to our daughters. They were my primary concern, along with addressing the personal issues that arose from my ex-partner's infidelity. These issues were effectively resolved through the support of friends, family, and professional counseling. Consequently, I am now at a point where I am ready to move on from that chapter of my life. I am no longer interested in communicating with our daughters. They are capable of understanding me, and there has never been any conflict or disagreement between us. They have not experienced any instances of fighting, yelling, or nonsensical teenage rebellion. They have not thrown any tantrums, and they have generally had a positive relationship with me. However, they are aware of the circumstances surrounding my divorce and the reasons behind it. Regarding her infidelity, it was their mother who informed them of the incident approximately 3 years ago. Since then, she has been providing them with misinformation, which I have requested her to cease. I have advised her on numerous occasions that this is unhelpful and hinders their ability to move forward. My wife did not cease her actions, she merely became more discreet in her communications over the years since our divorce. She has not engaged in any romantic or sexual relationships with other individuals, a decision that I find somewhat admirable. However, I must admit that I find it somewhat insulting. During our marriage, she was sexually active with other partners, but now she is willing to go without sexual intimacy for 7 years. This is not a significant issue, as I could ignore the occasional references to their mother and her appearance, as well as the photographs they took with her, which were clearly taken with little regard for my feelings. However, this behavior has recently intensified. Why is this the case? Clemens is not the first girlfriend I have had since my marriage ended. However, she is the most serious relationship I have had since then. She is also 8 years my junior. Before we became a couple, we had known each other for 4 years through a shared hobby. Therefore, it was a gradual transition from friendship to romantic involvement. I can honestly say that I love this woman. I was surprised by this realization because, while I did not want to admit it to myself, I was afraid for a time that my wife's actions caused me irreparable damage and rendered me incapable of ever truly loving someone else in the same capacity as I once loved her. Initially, my daughters had very little to say about our relationship, much like they had not commented on the previous 2 relationships I had post-divorce. However, they began returning home ahead of the schedule we had set up in advance and discovered me and Clemens together, though there was no physical intimacy. This led to some discontent. Subsequently, the children began to inquire about the rationale behind my wife's continued presence in our lives. They also expressed that they felt I was being unfair to their mother. I then engaged in a lengthy discussion with them to clarify my intentions. However, despite my efforts, they remained unconvinced. They continued to cling to the notion that I would eventually reconcile with their mother. On a positive note, Clemens has been supportive and has not expressed any distress over their actions. However, I am uncertain whether she will be able to fully accept their perspective. Thus far, my attempts at resolving the issue have not yielded the desired outcome. Given the lack of success thus far, I am uncertain as to the potential of further time being an effective solution. Having exhausted my ideas, I am seeking guidance from this esteemed community on how to effectively address the situation. I am curious to know if there is a strategy, approach, or method that could be employed to facilitate my daughter's understanding. I must emphasize that I am not seeking a reconciliation with their mother. Edit. I have consistently conveyed to them that while her mother and I maintain a cordial relationship, it is solely for their benefit and not for the purpose of resuming a relationship with their mother. Despite my efforts to convey this information, it appears to have had no impact on them. As previously stated, I referenced her infidelity to illustrate my reservations about being with their mother. Despite their awareness of this incident, they persist in employing the same argument, namely that she is now faithful to me. However, when I highlighted the inherent contradiction in this assertion, given that we are not currently in a relationship, they chose to disregard this observation. It is important to note that the children never perceive their mother as anything but loving, at least not towards them. However, they may have formed a different impression if they had witnessed her acting coldly and distant towards me during her affair. This was not a one-time occurrence, and it was not simply a passing infatuation. Regardless, I would have divorced her regardless of the circumstances. Their mother was not a loving individual in the bedroom. They never fully recognized this, nor should they have. My approaches to intimacy were often rebuffed, and I felt increasingly dejected until one day. With the assistance of a trusted and esteemed associate, I came to understand that my intrinsic value was not in question. This realization prompted me to investigate the circumstances surrounding the decline in the quality and quantity of our intimate life. I began to discern that the source of this change could not be attributed to me alone. It became evident that the deterioration in our relationship was not solely a result of the loss of physical intimacy. There were other, more subtle aspects of our daily lives that had also diminished. While this may appear trivial, it is worth noting that we had a long-standing tradition of greeting each other with a kiss at the front door, in full view of the public. I began to recognize that my wife's behavior was not entirely consistent with her stated beliefs and values. For instance, she had previously been quite affectionate, but this ceased abruptly. It became apparent that she was denying me even the most basic forms of affection while providing it to someone else outside of our marriage. This was a significant breach of trust and understanding. It was difficult to comprehend how someone could be so indifferent and hurtful, particularly when one realizes that one's spouse did not truly care about one's feelings. This realization led to feelings of regret and remorse. Furthermore, their continued pursuit of a reconciliation is, in my estimation, futile. What is the rationale behind this insistence? During the period in which they claim to have loved and felt remorse for me, they failed to recognize the gravity of the situation. They appear to believe that our reunion would swiftly erase any residual distress I may have experienced. However, they lack an understanding of the pain caused by a lack of trust in one's partner. I hope that they never have to experience the anguish of being betrayed by someone they love. I have recently engaged in discussions with my former partner. The issue has been discussed on numerous occasions, perhaps as many as 100 times, with my wife. Despite my initial reservations, I will eventually address the impact of my mother's infidelity on my own life. I am not solely motivated by self-interest, but rather by the concern that another user on this platform has expressed about the potential for such experiences to shape one's concept of love in unhealthy ways. It is crucial for me to convey to my wife that I am not seeking to internalize these experiences as a means of self-validation. The act of being cheated on or cheating on someone is not a trivial matter that can be dismissed lightly. In the case of Clemens, she is not attempting to assume the role of a mother figure for her daughters. She is aware that there is a 12-year age difference between herself and her daughters, which is not sufficient for them to view her as a mother figure. Additionally, Clemens has no intention of replacing their biological mother. Her approach is to simply wait until they lose hope for a reconciliation between their mother and me. Subsequently, at some point in the future, the relationship between them will become sufficiently comfortable for them to spend more and more time together. This is, of course, dependent on a number of factors, but it is likely to occur at some point in the near future. It is also worth noting that my daughters are not displaying any negative behavior towards me. They do not speak to me disrespectfully, either directly or indirectly. Indeed, they do not hate me. From my perspective, they simply prefer that I am back with their mother. This is something that I have gathered from my interactions with them. It has been some time since I first observed this dynamic. I recently received a reminder that I am indebted to the benevolent individuals who assisted me during my difficulties. A multitude of events have transpired, including the fortuitous discovery of my online post by my daughters. I was previously unaware that they even accessed Reddit, let alone this specific forum. Upon returning home from work one day, I found them in a state of distress. They immediately approached me, embraced me, and implored me to pardon them. Regrettably, they had perused one of my responses and become privy to the unfortunate details of my former partner. The wife's infidelity and its profound impact on me as a husband and father took time to navigate. Despite the initial devastation, we as a family managed to persevere. There was no forgiveness to be extended to the wife, who had taken the love of her children and used it to manipulate them. This was a personal failing, not a reflection of the children's character. A period of counseling was beneficial, but after several months, the therapist who was guiding us through this process suggested that further intervention was unnecessary. The children were encouraged to maintain contact with the therapist on an as-needed basis. Rather than continue their weekly sessions, we have become closer than we were before. However, their relationship with their mother has suffered as a result, which is understandable. Nevertheless, I caution them about dwelling on what she did, as I have resolved this issue. This was also addressed in counseling, both for them and for us as a family. Therefore, it is no longer an issue. I had a brief confrontation with my ex-wife about this. I informed my wife that she was to refrain from discussing the possibility of a reconciliation with our daughters. It is unclear whether she fully comprehended my instructions, but my daughters have not been prompted about me since then. Alternatively, they may simply ignore their mother and refrain from mentioning the topic at home. As long as my daughters are thriving, I am indifferent to the relationship status of my former partner. Since the situation had improved, things had also become much better between my daughters and my girlfriend. They had reached a point where they were actually initiating conversation with her, rather than merely exchanging greetings and goodbyes. On occasion, they even sought her advice on matters pertaining to their femininity. I am unable to convey the extent to which I was gratified by this development. It was encouraging to observe this positive development for the first time. I must acknowledge that this also prompted me to consider proposing to my girlfriend, who had been remarkably supportive and understanding throughout this process. We had been acquainted for a considerable duration and had spent a significant amount of time together as a couple. Given the challenges we had faced, I had not anticipated that there would be a suitable opportunity to propose marriage. I was uncertain as to whether there was anything more I could do to express my love for her. However, 2 months ago, Clemens, together with my daughters, surprised me and proposed marriage. I experienced a sense of peculiarity, yet also a profound sense of joy. It was not only the proposal itself that I found remarkable, but also that my daughters had collaborated with my girlfriend to arrange the surprise. The dinner and night out were a pleasant surprise. The ceremony was intimate, attended only by our closest friends and family. Currently, we are expecting, and my daughters are excited for the arrival of a new sibling. I will now proceed to the second narrative. I declined to speak with my sister, so my mother initiated a conversation. Given my background in interventions, I began a romantic relationship with my brother's best friend when I was 16 years old. We remained together until I graduated from high school. At that point, he proposed marriage, but I rejected the proposal. There was considerable drama within my family, with members urging me to reconsider the situation. They suggested that we could have a long engagement or make a promise to reconcile my relationship with my brother, who was 36 at the time. The relationship between my sister and me was irreparably damaged. She was convinced that my ex-partner was the ideal match for me and became increasingly intolerable when she began dating my ex-partner's brother. My ex-partner was frequently invited to social events by my siblings, including some family holidays. I did not intervene because he was also a close friend of theirs. However, my sister began to pressure me to reconcile with him. My sister employed a variety of tactics to facilitate a reconciliation between my ex-partner and me. These included arranging blind dates and sharing a room during holiday periods. Eventually, I reached my limit and requested that my parents intervene. They conveyed their expectations to my siblings and ceased inviting my ex-partner to events or allowing him to attend in their company. While my brother's behavior did not change, my sister's did not improve. However, my sister's attitude shifted significantly when I met my husband during a semester abroad. Despite attending a different university, he and I bonded immediately. It was a profound and positive experience, and after a year of dating, we got engaged. My family was supportive of this decision, with the exception of my sister, who continued to express her discontent. I was in the honeymoon phase and would eventually outgrow it. However, after numerous attempts to reunite me with my ex, I realized that my sister's actions were unacceptable. I informed her that if she attempted to interfere with my marriage again, would sever all communication with her. This prompted my sister to become even more persistent, requesting that I spend all my time with the bridal party, also known as my former romantic partner, inserted one of her friends as my husband's date. We were not aware of this until we reached the reception, at which point the young woman attempted to initiate a romantic encounter with my husband. My sister asserted that, given our lack of marital status, it was acceptable to explore relationships with other individuals. I subsequently departed from the gathering and, the following day, consulted with my parents and brother. I will not compel my sister to choose between us. Furthermore, I will not communicate with her again. Should she attempt to reconcile our relationship, I will simply terminate all contact. My mother was profoundly distressed and attempted to negotiate an agreement. However, my father and brother stated that they would respect my decision. Apart from 2 attempts by my mother, I have not communicated with her in any way. Over the past 6 years, my sister has attempted numerous times to reconcile with me. These efforts have included displays of emotion ranging from tantrums to dramatic outbursts. However, I have consistently chosen to ignore her. If we are in a family setting, such as a dinner, I simply act as though she is not present. Initially, she resorted to making snarky comments or attempting to create drama. However, when she realized that nobody was supporting her, she ceased these actions. She did, however, have a meltdown when I was informed that she had been invited to my wedding, but that she would not be participating in any wedding preparations. My brother states that he feels guilty for going along with it for so long, and that his relationship with my former spouse has suffered as a result. They still communicate, but they are not as close as they once were. Regarding my mother's birthday, which occurred a couple of weeks ago, I finally announced that we are. Given that this is the first grandchild, it is perhaps unsurprising that my sister was not overjoyed. My mother, however, was pleased. She commented on this the other day, noting that she had sensed my sister's unease. Despite this, I was keen to maintain a positive outlook. On arrival, I was struck by the presence of my sister's car. As I entered the house, I was met with a somewhat awkward atmosphere. My sister, her husband, my ex-husband, and I were present. They sought to conduct an intervention, given the prolonged effectiveness of my childish tactic. My ex-husband stated that he was merely attempting to be romantic, but he recognized that I was unable to appreciate it. His mother asserted that I was causing my sister distress by seeking the best for myself, and she had already apologized, so I was expected to forgive her. I was sending text messages to my family, including my father, brother, and husband, and looking at my mother in disbelief. My Bill had the audacity to tell me that I was a hurtful person and that I needed to learn how to act like an adult since I was having a baby. Then my mother began reading a letter about how hurt she was. She discussed how her daughters were not close and how my sister was wrong, but she was well. Subsequently, my sister read her letter and began to weep, recounting a different version of events from those already presented. I remained silent, merely observing until my brother arrived. He was visibly enraged, seizing my belongings and expressing profound displeasure and disgust. We proceeded to exit the premises and take refuge in his vehicle until my father and husband arrived. By that point, I was in a state of profound distress, and he continued to offer apologies. The precise sequence of events within that space remains unclear to me, but I proceeded to send an email to all except my mother. The lawyer's contact information was included in the email, and it stated that I do not wish to be contacted by any of them ever again. If they do contact me, I will notify the police. Despite this, I am aware that my father, mother, and sister are experiencing distress. They informed my father that they believe my sister should repair the damage caused and that my sister should be permitted to play an active role in my children's lives. My sister may potentially serve as a godmother. My father is currently staying with my brother, and they support me, but not all members of the family do. I have received calls from individuals with whom I have a mutual relationship, expressing concern about my sister's well-being. I have been asked to provide details of the events that have transpired since my sister has assumed the position of narrator, claiming that I am being kept away from my family. I am reluctant to discuss these matters in a public forum, but I have chosen to do so, publishing a lengthy post on Facebook. This outlines the sequence of events that have taken place, and the impact that they have had on my sister, Bill, and X. Even if the situation was not entirely foreseeable, I believe that my sister and her husband have been treated unjustly. My mother has been inconsolable, which has caused me some distress, but not to the same extent as her intervention. I have agreed to meet with her to discuss the situation and establish some ground rules. Any potential future interactions, including therapy and family therapy, the establishment of clear boundaries, and the prohibition of sharing information about me with my sister, as well as the implementation of separate holidays, are all possibilities. The most crucial aspect is that, should she engage in any similar actions in the future, she will undoubtedly be cut off. She perceives this as an excessive measure but is willing to comply. She assumed that it would entail immediate access to information about the baby and that the matter would be resolved immediately. However, I informed her that it is a process and that she must demonstrate her improvement. My father and brother have chosen not to communicate with my sister and continue to express regret for not intervening sooner. We have forgiven her actions. My husband supports whatever decision I make, but my mother is undecided. She believes that limiting my grandmother's access to her granddaughter is the most beneficial course of action, but she acknowledges that it is ultimately my decision. I am uncertain about how to proceed with my mother. Edit, I attempted to post, but I was unable to do so. I wish to express my gratitude for the considerable support and guidance I have received thus far. I would like to provide additional information that I have not included in my previous comments, as there are too many to respond to individually. My former partner and I separated when I was 18 years old. He is currently 37. The reason for our separation was my sister's insistence on my engagement stems from her desire for both of us to marry brothers and to maintain close friendship. My mother has always been cordial to my husband, but I am beginning to believe that her demeanor was merely a facade, which is a source of considerable sadness for me. My former partner has been involved with other individuals since our separation. He also has 2 children with an ex-partner, but he has never been married. My sister views this as a romantic gesture. Given that he has only, it is also noteworthy that his obsessive behavior is not limited to me. Based on information obtained from an unidentified source, it can be inferred that he exhibited similar behavior towards the mother of his children. However, he has recently shifted his attention towards me, likely due to encouragement from my sister, who is attempting to improve our relationship. My brother did initially attempt to limit his interactions with my ex-partner, following my disclosure to my parents that I was uneasy with the constant presence of my ex-partner during my period of residence away from home. He would visit my family during college breaks. My brother made a significant effort to accommodate my husband, which strained his relationship with my ex-partner. Currently, my husband is one of my brother's closest friends. He only communicates with my ex-partner regarding our nephew, sister, or other matters of importance. Both my parents appear to support my preference for limiting my interactions with my ex-partner. However, I believe they may not fully understand the depth of my feelings on the matter. On the day of the tea party, my father concurred with my mother's decision to spend time together without my ex-brother-in-law. He believed that the quality time they would spend together would be beneficial. However, my father left to spend time with my uncle, as he felt that my mother's gesture was not reciprocated by my husband. My husband attempted to maintain a cordial relationship with my sister, but he now chooses to ignore her and believes that she is mentally unstable. We are unsure if this is the case. There is no justification for her behavior. They extended an invitation to the former partner and his mother because they believed it would be beneficial for me to confront the root of my issues with my sister. At least, that is their official account. My husband and I are not of Indian descent and do not adhere to any particular religion. My former partner and I are of the same racial background. There is also no significant wealth disparity between my former partner and my husband. If there is, it would favor my husband. Finally, I have 2 siblings, both of whom are married to the children of my brother and sister-in-law. My husband and his sisters will be discussing the situation with their mother. My brother and his wife are contemplating a permanent cessation of contact with my mother. In the interim, they will prohibit her from seeing our nephews. As I continue reading, I am increasingly inclined to visit with my mother for the sake of our child. My husband is devastated to learn that all their interactions were fabricated. However, he is even more enraged by the revelation. The incident evoked a strong emotional response, prompting me to question my self-perception and doubt my moral rectitude. I recognize the necessity for ongoing dialogue with my family regarding my mother, yet I am resolved to pursue legal recourse against my sister and the former spouse. To date, I have engaged in a discussion with my mother, who asserts that she was in the best position to make decisions. She has made disparaging remarks about me, suggesting that I am unworthy and that she will be granted custody of our grandchildren or even full custody. Despite these challenges, I remain anxious, prompting us to send her a letter about the situation. My father has moved out, and he informed her that he was unable to sign documents that would allow her to continue terrorizing his child. My brother and his wife also decided to go and see her. I realize it seems very sudden, but I believe I did not adequately convey the extent of despair I had experienced after the intervention. My husband subsequently informed them that they needed to carefully consider what they appreciated and to be kind and receptive to everything, but that they should not raise a child in a toxic environment. 271-637 Why I love my husband. My husband is profoundly distressed about my mother and her deceitful nature. He asserts that she will never receive anything from him that could be construed as a form of vengeance. My husband and sisters have engaged in a discussion with my mother about her comment and have attempted to elucidate the reasons behind her actions. They have also sought to clarify that she is not a malicious mother, but rather a product of a loving family. My father and brother have expressed their apologies for any role they may have played in this situation. My father is particularly astonished at the turn of events. He states that the situation remains surreal for him. Nevertheless, they offer their support and assistance, indicating their willingness to help me navigate the challenges posed by my mother and cousin. I would like to express my gratitude for the kind messages and words of encouragement I have received. I chose to share this update here to ensure its preservation, as the original was deleted. While circumstances are simultaneously positive and challenging, I am striving to maintain a positive outlook. My brother and his wife recently sat down with my nephews and explained that Grandma was unwell and attempted to harm Annie Diamond and the young cousin. They explained that Grandma would no longer be a part of their lives, but this does not imply that she does not love them. It was challenging for the children, who are intelligent. They were also informed that other aunts and uncles were no longer in their lives, but they do not care because they dislike her, not because of me alone, but simply because she is not particularly adept at interacting with them. My mother became emotional when she was informed and began to claim that my father is seeking a long-term residence for himself and his wife, as well as legal custody of his grandchildren. My brother is visiting from abroad, and our family home is currently at full capacity. My father is experiencing profound sadness and has already initiated divorce proceedings. He has been inundated with messages, calls, and emails from my mother, but has chosen not to respond. His lawyer advised him to maintain communication with her for the time being. My father considered forgiving my mother, but I strongly advised against it. A couple of days after my last post on this forum, my mother decided to visit my residence with my sister. My sister had never previously been to my home. My mother was aware that I did not want her there, but it seems that this is no longer a concern. The cleaning lady permitted them to enter the premises, as she is aware of my relationship with my mother and I have not had the opportunity to inform her of the change in circumstances. I was returning from a series of errands and observed the vehicle in question. I did not enter the property. Instead, I contacted all of my sister-in-law was the closest relative to me. She confronted them and informed them that if I called the police on them for trespassing, they would be forced to leave. They departed, and I began to experience feelings of distress. We subsequently visited a medical professional, who advised me that the level of excitement I had been experiencing was not beneficial for my health and that I needed to learn how to relax. Otherwise, it would negatively impact the health of my unborn child. My father returned home with my brother, uncle, and my husband, taking with him a vast array of belongings. My husband informed me that my sister was also present and that my father informed my mother and sister that their brother had been screaming at him, stating that he had destroyed their family. He also indicated that he was unwilling to communicate with them again. My sister continued to send messages to my brother, imploring him for assistance, but he remained unresponsive. I am profoundly distressed and disheartened for my nephew, who is experiencing the loss of a significant portion of his family due to his mother's unconventional beliefs. However, the circumstances are what they are, as per the custody and grandparent agreements. My mother is inclined to engage in aggressive behavior. My lawyer sent her a letter stating that her actions had caused harm to my health and the baby. The letter also warned that if she persisted in her harassment, it would become an official legal matter. My brother also sent her a letter, using similar language to that in my lawyer's letter. My mother and sister have refused to go to therapy. While they may be mentally ill, the fact that they have been in disagreement for a long time is evident. My focus for the holidays will be on spending time with my family, maintaining my health, and attending therapy sessions.